Welcome back to the YouTube channel, everybody. Hope you all are having a great day. It's a beautiful fall day here in Columbus, Ohio. Got the fall leaves behind me, beautiful trees, fantastic day. But in this video I wanted to respond to some comments that I got on my latest video about apologetics and the atheistic versus a theistic worldview and how this can affect our morals and the idea of moral objectivism versus relativism, right? So if you guys didn't see my video, essentially what I was talking about was how you cannot have a moral framework that is consistent, and you really can't have any moral framework outside of a belief in God, because, you know, moral laws, you need a moral lawgiver. Then there's just no reason to believe in morals without the existence of God, because we're just, as I'll explain in this video, we're just meaningless clumps of cells moving through a meaningless universe, you know, with no purpose or destiny. So anyways, in this video I want to address some comments that I got in my latest video. So first of all, shout out to the commenter. I appreciate you all for tuning in and interacting with the video. It's always great to interact with you guys. And I also want to say that I disagree, and I debate respectfully and humbly. I don't take anything personal, and I would hope the same for you. So I'm actually talking to a gentleman, or I think it's a gentleman or a lady, who knows, Jalen Murphy, okay? So Jalen commented on my video and said, a secular reason to avoid killing people is that 1, people are vengeful and will exact a price on your head that even extends to your family and friends, and 2, empathy is an evolutionary trait developed to help our species survive, because people who inherited this trait and passed it on to both genetically and culturally would live longer than a society that had no capacity for understanding each other. Okay, so let's address the first point there. I actually did respond to this comment, but I'm just going to address the first point in this video. So, number 1, people are vengeful and will exact a price on your head that even extends to your family and friends. So that's a secular reason to avoid killing people, right? But sure, you may have a reason, but is it wrong? That's my point. How can you prove to me that killing a person is wrong without having an objective moral law to follow? Because you're always going to have people that say, you know what, it's not wrong. My culture says it's okay to kill people. Look at over in some cultures where children are raped and killed by certain people, and the law is not applied equally. Those people would say killing is not wrong. And how? So my question to you as an atheist, assuming if you're an atheist, is how can you tell me that killing is always wrong without saying, I have a law that says killing is wrong? In the Bible, we have a law that says killing is wrong, and it's also written in the conscience that God gave us, as he says in his word. So we have it 2 places. We have it in the moral law in the Bible. We also have it in our conscience that God gave us, right? Second of all, empathy is an evolutionary trait developed to help our species survive, because people who inherited this trait and pass it on would live longer in a society. Well, my challenge to you on that point as well would be, what about societies that have not honored the trait of empathy? So look at Nazi Germany, look at Russia at times, Mussolini, dictatorships in the world that have not honored empathy and have gone on to build massive empires, right? So even assuming that argument is true, you still run into issues, because not everybody values empathy, and not everybody would say that that is a trait that would further the human species anyways, because if your leadership, like in Nazi Germany, said, you know what, this group of individuals is not valuable, we're not going to be empathetic toward them, so we're going to kill them to further our own species, our own race, right? That in itself, that mindset, like Nazis believed that they were preserving their race, the Aryan race, by enacting the opposite of empathy. So even if that was true, it still has holes in the argument. But I want to underline this again. This is going out to you, Jalen, in specific. If you want to respond to this video, feel free. Absolutely. But to all atheists, this is my challenge to you. Why does anything matter? Why? And if you're an atheist that argues that something matters in this world, in this life, then I would also encourage you to examine your own standpoint anyways, because true atheism in its roots, the belief that nothing outside of the material world exists, is forced to admit that this life is meaningless. There's no hope. There's no meaning to life. So that's the first thing. But second of all, prove to me that anything has meaning. What is empathy? Why does empathy matter? Our lives don't matter if you're an atheist. This world is a random combustion of atoms that occurred in the Big Bang, and we evolved from animals, and there's no afterlife, there's no moral law, there's no God that carries out justice perfectly when we die. So nothing matters. Why does it matter if somebody kills somebody? Why does it matter if you have empathy or not? It doesn't if you're an atheist, and that's my point. The reason I myself as a Christian, and to be quite honest and fair, even people of other faiths, the reason they can say that the reason they can say that murder is wrong, for example, or that empathy is a virtuous trait that should be pursued, is because we have a revelation in the Word of God. And even though I don't agree with, for example, Islamic ideology or Judaic ideology, whether or not I agree with it, I still would say that even they have a stronger position than atheists, because in their word of what they say is the Word of God, they have a moral law that says this is wrong, so it's consistent. In atheism, there is no moral law, there's no morals. We're clumps of cells floating through a meaningless universe with no meaning at all. So therefore, empathy is non-existent and meaningless. There's no point to pursue it. He says, plus there's the whole threat of prison, which of course exists because we as a society long ago, I'm just going to keep moving on here. So I responded, I said, what is empathy? Define empathy without borrowing from the idea of spirits existing. So kind of had my argument there. And I said, why does empathy matter? So I'm going to respond to his second comment here. He says, do you enjoy the ability to turn your back on people without the concern of being literally stabbed in the back? At some point in human history, we didn't have those empathetic circuits fully developed or at all in our brains, and we didn't have empathy as part of our culture. That is a much scarier world to live in. So I think you misunderstood my question. I wasn't asking why is empathy important because I don't think it's important. Of course I think empathy is important. The reason I asked you that question is because coming from an atheistic worldview, you cannot give me a reason that empathy matters, because there's no higher law, there's no higher reason to be empathetic to others. My reason as a Christian to be empathetic to others is because Jesus said he was God and said that to love your brother as yourself, love thy neighbor as thyself. That's why empathy matters, and because good and evil exist in my worldview. But in your worldview, and I say this humbly and respectfully, I'm not trying to disrespect you at all, but I'm saying this to provoke you, hopefully, to seek truth. Your worldview just does not allow for that. I'm just straight up. That being said, do you think empathy would still cause you to see the value in outlawing such acts as murder, rape, and stealing, even if the God of the Bible didn't exist? Empathy matters whether we have empathy because we were made in God's image, or if we have empathy because it's evolutionary and societally advantageous. So first of all, no. No, without God's existence, empathy itself can be defined differently, right? This goes back to the idea of objective reality. Because it's societally advantageous, I mean, if something is societally advantageous, does that justify it as being correct? Like, just because empathy happens to be advantageous in this situation does not mean empathy itself is virtuous. The reason empathy is virtuous is because God says that it is, and because good and evil exist in the Bible, in this world. Good and evil exist. It's as clear as day. It's in our conscience. Without God, empathy is useless. And it's simple and reductive in some sense, but I want to keep hammering this home because that's the reality. In an atheistic worldview, there's no point to be empathetic. There's no point to have emotions. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. We're clumps of cells floating through the universe with no meaning. But as far as being societally advantageous, so what would your response, and this is, you feel free to respond to this in the video, comment section below. What if something that was evil was advantageous societally, right? So what if we said murder is advantageous? You know, let's say that a president was elected and said, you know what, you can go, kill your neighbor if you want. If he has money in his house, if he has something in his house, kill your neighbor. It's advantageous. Does that make it right? Does that make it virtuous? Because that's your argument here with empathy. There's a lot of things that are advantageous to humans evolutionarily, but it does not make it right. And that's what I'm asking you is define why empathy matters. Define it without God. And in my opinion, I don't think you can. If you believe in the God of the Bible and that makes you a better person, that's fantastic. I don't think it makes me a better person. No man is good, Jesus said. I'm not good. I'm not a good person. I don't even have the capacity to be a good person because I'm so sinful. You just pointed out a question for atheists in your video, and I shared an answer to that question. So, again, respectfully, I would say that you didn't answer the question because let me boil it down like this. If there's no God out there, and this universe is just by happenstance and nothing matters, you can't define empathy. You just can't. It doesn't matter. There's no point to be empathetic. There's no point to love others. There's no point to be good. There's no such thing as good and evil. Define good and evil without the Bible. Or, for that matter, a religious text, but I would say the Bible. What is good and evil? Even if you say, well, it feels wrong. If it feels wrong, if you do something and you know it's wrong, guess what? Even that explanation is not enough, because in the Bible it says God gave us a conscience to be able to decipher right from wrong. But in the atheistic worldview, you just do not have that. It's just lacking. There's no such thing as a conscience. There's no soul. We're just animals that are evolved from fish. So there's no explanation for it. So my challenge to you, Jalen, and all other atheists who may be seeing this video, give me a reason to be empathetic, because nothing matters in your worldview. Nothing matters. Give me a reason to do anything in your worldview. What's the difference between me going out here and making a better place of the world and just living in my mom's basement and doing nothing? There's no difference in your worldview for those two lifestyles. There's no difference between Hitler killing millions of Jews and George Washington sailing across the Delaware River to establish this country to enable people to have freedom and liberty. Those two people in the atheistic worldview are no different. They don't matter. Nothing matters. So that's my challenge to you and all atheists. And again, I say this respectfully, I say it humbly. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm not trying to do any of that. This is a respectful challenge to you to answer that question, because I don't think you did. So anyways, answering that question, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll be looking forward to hearing from you again in this video. Hopefully you see this. But if not, it's okay. Make sure you like the video, subscribe here if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.